And for those of you participating remotely, good evening. We welcome you as well. For those who are participating remotely, we ask members of the public to place their microphone on mute during the meeting with the exception of any public hearing. At the appropriate point in the hearing, I will invite the public to unmute their microphone for purposes of submitting such comments as they may wish to make, one person at a time. All persons wishing to make public comments will be asked to first state their name and address for the record, and after completing the comment, members of the public are once again asked to place their microphone on mute, and we thank all of you this evening for your cooperation. If you would, at this time, please join us in rising for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Hazen.
Here.
Mr. Belovich.
Here.
Mr. Mamalenti.
Here.
Mr. Benicki.
Here.
Mr. Emmons.
Yes.
Mrs. DeMade.
Here.
Mr. Compton.
Here.
Mrs. Volker.
Here.
Mr. Hicksonbaugh.
Here. Approval of the minutes of our regular meeting of June 19th, 2023. Are there any additions or corrections? Then hearing none, the minutes stand approved as received from the clerk's office. Petitions, communications, remonstrance, and memorial.
Yes, Mr. President, we have a letter from the Board of Zoning Appeals regarding their recommendation, excuse me, regarding property east and adjacent to 2014 East McKinley. Honorable members, a regular meeting of the Mishawaka Board of Zoning Appeals was held on the above date, at which time the following use variance was considered. Appeal number 2023-08, a request submitted by Nate Zolman Tire, requesting a use variance to allow automobile repair in the I-1 Light Industrial District on property east of and adjacent to 2014 East McKinley Avenue. The board, with a vote of 5-0, recommended approval. This is signed by Krista Hill, Senior Planner for the Board of Zoning Appeals. Petition number 2023-15 to the honorable members of the Common Council, City of Mishawaka, Indiana. Petition for vacation of public right-of-way. Right-of-way vacation for the first east-west alley north of East Marion Street, starting at Christiane Street, then to the west 110 feet for the first north-south alley. This is signed by Rachel Morris. Petition number 2023-16 to the honorable members of the Common Council, City of Mishawaka, Indiana. Petition for vacation of public right-of-way. Right-of-way vacation for part of Front Street not improved between the east side of Church Main Street connector and the St. Joseph River Raceway. This is signed by Ken Prince, City of Mishawaka Executive Director of Planning and Community Development. Petition number 2023-17 to the honorable members of the Common Council, City of Mishawaka, Indiana. Petition to rezone from C1 General Commercial to C6 Linear Office Commercial to permit a residential unit at 1644 Lincoln Way East. This is signed by Jillian Schultz.
Thank you. This evening, we have no report of any special committee, nor any ordinances on first reading, so we'll move into resolutions.
Resolution R 2023-15, a resolution of the Common Council, City of Mishawaka, Indiana, approving petition of the Mishawaka Board of Zoning Appeals for the property located at east of and adjacent to 2014 East McKinley Avenue in Mishawaka, Indiana.
Thank you. We'll now open the public hearing on proposed resolution 2023-15. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, if you would, please come forward to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Hi there, Steve Ruby, Abmarsh Consulting, 315 West Jefferson, South Bend, Indiana. Speaking for the petitioner to allow for the automobile repair in the light industrial districts there. This is currently a similar use that is adjacent to the property they currently have, so they're just asking for that same use to be extended to the property to the east of them. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Ruby? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the proposed resolution? If so, please come forward. Then is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone present this evening who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come forward. And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition? Are there any council members who wish to speak? If not, then I call for the question.
Question.
Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council?
Mr. Hazen?
Yes.
Mr. Belovich?
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti?
Yes.
Mr. Benicki?
Yes.
Mr. Emmons?
Yes.
Mrs. DeMade?
Yes.
Mr. Compton?
Yes.
Mrs. Volker?
Yes.
Mr. Hicksonball?
Yes.
Resolution passes 9-0.
Ordinances on second reading.
Excuse me. Proposed ordinance number 2023-24, an ordinance amending Chapter 137 of the Municipal Code of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, as from time to time amended, commonly known as the zoning ordinance of 1966 of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana. This is to rezone from R1 Single Family Residential to R2 Two Family Residential to match existing use as a duplex at 712 Division Street.
Thank you. May we have the committee report, please?
Yes, Mr. President, to the members of the Common Council of the City of Mishawaka, your Committee on Land Use Planning, to whom is referred the matter of proposed ordinance 2023-24, report that they have examined said matter and in their opinion should be presented to the council as a whole. This is signed by the entire committee, and I move for its acceptance.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to approve the committee report. Any additional questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We'll now move into second reading and public hearing on proposed ordinance 2023-24. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, if you would, please come forward to the podium. Is there anyone either present this evening or participating remotely who wishes to speak with regard to 712 Division Street? Mr. Compton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm gonna ask that the council postpone this that we get in contact with the developer and give them another opportunity. I don't know what else to do. Either that or we deny it completely.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to postpone further public hearing on proposed ordinance 2023-24 until such time as the petitioner can be present. As a point of clarification with regard to your motion, Mr. Compton, is that to postpone it indefinitely or until a date certain?
Next council meeting.
Thank you. And with that clarification, are there any additional questions from the council? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The matter will be postponed until our regularly scheduled council meeting of next Monday, July 17th.
Proposed ordinance number 2023-25, an ordinance amending Chapter 137 of the Municipal Code of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, is from time to time amended, commonly known as the zoning ordinance of 1966 of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana. This is to rezone from S1 extensive open space to C3 city center commercial, northeast corner of Cedar and East 3rd Street. I do have a letter from the petitioner asking that this be postponed until the August 7th meeting, and this is signed by Ken Prince, Executive Director, City of Mishawaka Planning and Community Development.
Mr. Compton.
Make a motion that we honor the petitioner's request.
Second.
Thank you. A motion has been made and seconded to postpone further public hearing proposed ordinance 2023-25 until our regularly scheduled meeting of August 7th, 2023, at the request of the petitioner. Are there any additional questions or comments? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The matter will be postponed as requested by the petitioner.
Proposed ordinance 2023-26, an ordinance annexing contiguous territory to the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, and providing zoning classification therefore. This is to annex and zone to I-1 Light Industrial District for proposed self-storage vacant land south of 1505 South Burkett. This is a public hearing with no vote this evening.
Thank you. We will now move into a public hearing on proposed ordinance 2023-26. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, if you would, please come forward to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Tom Fitzpatrick, Vice President of Development with Storage of America, and we are looking at turning this site into our 30th site within our portfolio into storage. And we would like to have this annexed in and then rezoned to the industrial zoning for storage. We need to extend water main to the site for fire safety and, of course, have some electrical utilities there too. So if there's any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the council? Mr. Compton?
Thank you, Mr. Fitzpatrick, I thought I heard. What kind of city utilities or city services will be required? Do you need plumbing? Do you need sewer? Do you, electric, I assume?
Electric and water for fire protection.
Okay.
This site would be monitored by a kiosk site, so there'll be a small building on site with television cameras, television about the size of that, 2 of them. And as soon as somebody walks in, a remote individual enters in, welcomes the customer, and walks them through getting the site set up. And then on a periodic basis, probably about 2 or 3 times a week, we'd have maintenance people come through, do maintenance, and also property maintenance, cutting the grass and things of that nature, checking locks and things of that. It would be completely enclosed within fences and cameras inside inside, and then also in the kiosk itself. There's no cameras pointing out. It's only for security purposes, and it is monitored 24/7 for breaches and things of that nature if somebody tries to do theft. We recently went to that model because that's what our competition is doing, is the remote type customer service. And so there would be a small little kiosk building there, so it's really just electrical and then water service for emergency services.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Volker?
Hi, thank you very much. Hi, Mr. Fitzpatrick. I just had a question about, you said that this is your 30th site or location. Can you tell us a little bit about your company and where the majority of your,
This year is our 20th anniversary as a company providing self-storage in the Midwest. And we started out in a small remodeling a facility in Novi, Michigan, which is outside of Detroit. We've also remodeled facilities in and around Indianapolis. Primarily where we're centered is Indianapolis. We have about 5 sites in Indianapolis and about 5 or 6 more in the towns around Indianapolis. We're now in Dayton, Ohio, Akron, Ohio. We're moving into Youngstown, Ohio, Fremont, Ohio, Bay City, Michigan, Saginaw, Michigan, Flint, Michigan, Port Huron, Michigan, and Benton Harbor, Michigan. Aurora, Illinois, which is going to be a big site. It's a remodeling of an old Carson Perry Scott that's we're currently arranging to begin construction on that. Joliet, Illinois, St. Louis, Missouri. We have 2 sites in Maryville and also one in South Bend that we're looking at. So we're we've grown quite well in the Midwest here in the last 5 years. It's just been an extreme challenge, but also probably the greatest position I've ever had working for a company, because Robert and Joni Walker are 2 great people. They're very friendly, and they're very oriented in customer service for the whole company.
so you said that you have a site in South Bend, or you are looking at a site in South Bend?
We have a site out by Renewable Energy Drive
Okay,
that is currently being considered for construction.
okay.
Now, that is already in the city of South Bend, so we have the available sewer, water, and electrical needs right there. We don't have to annex. Very similar site to the one on Bike and Fur Road. That was one question I have, is that road seems to change names a lot. And everybody in our company likes the name Fur Road, but I want to make sure that if we annex into the city, it's still going to be able to keep Fur Road and it doesn't change the Bike Road. Just easy pronunciation.
I would imagine if it's Fur Road now, it'll stay Fur Road,
Okay.
but,
It's an in-house thing, really, because we
Engineering.
yeah.
kind of use our names, the site names is the name of the road, and that's, the
Don't
company
make
kind of
the
likes
sign
SOA Fur, so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Other questions? Mr. Benicki?
Yes, Mr. Fitzpatrick. Do you use local builders to build this? You bring in groups from outside? Do you buy the materials local? How do you handle all that?
First, define local. Indiana, we use a lot of material and companies from Indiana. We use Graber Post out of their south and west of Indianapolis a little ways. They supply our steel. We also use Tracky out of Wisconsin on occasion, but most of it comes from Graber Post. We have two contractors, no, actually three contractors right now. One of them is Better Indy Rehabs out of Indianapolis, Indiana, and they kind of jump around to different sites. They're finishing up with the Dayton project that we have going on right now outside of Trotwood, which is outdoor facility. And this may be their site, the next site that they jump to after they're finished with that, if it time so. So we don't have a lot of contacts around. This is going to be the first two sites in the area. We've been looking for about 3 or 4 years in the South Bend, Mishawaka area, and we haven't found the right fit for us. We've kind of changed a little bit because of the market. We used to do a lot of refurbishing Kmart's, Targets, Macy's, and things of that nature. But that market's kind of dried up because there's a lot of people doing it right now. So we're primarily focusing in on ground up, and these two properties came to us for ground up. So that's,
So will the contractor be using some local people to build this? so
Yeah,
that-
they're
that
very well
Money
could
spent
be.
here,
Yep.
after the fact. I mean,
Yep.
it's not like we're going to pay this developer and then he goes back
oh,
to
no,
Indianapolis
we
and off he
have,
goes.
it goes out to bid for various trades like underground construction. Both these sites in South Bend and in Mishawaka, they have a big detention basin on the land. Well, it's not really a detention, it's more of a borrow area, because these sites happen to have a very thick amount of topsoil on them. So we want to bring that up, and the best way to bring it up is right on site. But at the same time, we're able to tackle the stormwater management with that. And of course, everything's fenced in with security fence as well. So, and contractors, local contractors, it's always cheaper to have local contractors do the work, local surveyors to do the construction staking and things of that nature. And then we have concrete slabs. It's always easier to find, you're going to purchase a lot of concrete, and you're not going to move concrete very far to make it competitive. So we need to be competitive. We have erectors, and a lot of like Better Indy, wherever they go to, they're always hiring 5 or 6 people to do work on their site, because they're going to get that 10,000 square foot per week of construction going.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Bramlante?
Thank you, Mr. President. I apologize if I had missed this, but could you just explain briefly the unit? Is it you walk in and then you access all the individual units, or are all the individual units
Pardon me?
outdoor? Are all the,
Oh, they're all outdoor,
they're all out?
individual units. You walk into the kiosk, and you get greeted by a remote manager. And then you rent, if you desire to rent a unit, you rent the unit. They give you a key or a lock, and then a gate code. So that gate code, you enter in the gate code, and you go find the unit, and then you drop off. It's outdoor. They're not climate controlled, so you're not inside a building.
Okay.
We used to do that when the buildings were available, but they're not that prevalent anymore.
So The renters do not have to go into the kiosk building every single time just to,
Only generally once, maybe. We're cashless. We're going cashless right now. So everything is paid online through either a credit or debit card like that, so you don't have to worry about those types of things. Everybody has a key. We know when they come in, when they go out. The operation is only operational between the hours of 6 a.m. and 11 p.m. Sometimes we'll cut that down to 9 or 10 p.m., depending on the type of customers that seem to be there. But there's somebody that will always greet them between the hours of 8 a.m. and 5:30 p.m.
and will you allow outdoor storage such as RVs, boats, et cetera, that will not?
In this first phase, we are not seeking that. In a future phase, there may be, but that would be, if we did, then we would come to the city to ask for that use in a site plan. We don't have much of that, and usually when we do put it into our project, it's like under a main power line, because you can't build units there, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, other questions? Mrs. DeMaid?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Fitzpatrick, good evening. So this is nearly a 20-acre parcel of land. And how many units will be on that parcel?
Well, our first phase is around 70,000 square feet, which would probably be at about, that's going to be about 700 units right there, maybe a little bit less than that, like 500 to 700 units. Of that 20 acre, that's only about 1/3, maybe to 1/4 to 1/3 of the property. And so ultimately, there'd probably be about 250,000 square feet. It depends on the market. Sometimes it takes a while to fill that up. And we don't move unless we're 80% full on another phase.
Okay.
So it's usually about 140 square feet per unit on average. So if you have 250,000 square feet, it's somewhere probably under 2,000, just under 2,000 units ultimately in future phases.
Okay, thank you.
And that may take 5 years to build out or more.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions for Mr. Fitzpatrick? Then not so much a question as a comment, sir, as a follow-up to your dialogue with Mrs. Volker regarding the name of the street. That's obviously a legitimate question to pose. That's not a matter that's within the jurisdiction of the council with respect to the ordinance that we're being asked to pass.
Okay.
And I would direct you to one of two departments, maybe a little bit of both within the administration. The first, I would start, if I were you, with the planning department and pose that same question to them, although it's always been my understanding that the engineering department has some role with
Yeah,
regard to the establishment of street addresses once property is annexed into the city and the zoning is established. So whatever you can work out with them, I wish you well. Burkett, quite frankly, sounds like more of a Mishawaka address than a Fur Road to me, but that'll be between you and the powers that be in the
I
administration.
notice it's a big main road in town, so.
Yep.
If you see me struggling a little bit with hearing, I am deaf, and I forgot my hearing aid at the hotel when I got here.
Well,
So-
don't feel bad if you see us struggling a little bit. One of the beauties and the challenges of this room is the high ceiling, which sometimes makes it difficult for all of us to hear.
I want to tell you, though, this is like one of the best council chambers that I've been in recently.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
I like it.
But please contact the administration and pose that question with regard to the name of the street, if you would. Any other questions for Mr. Fitzpatrick?
The road name.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else present who wishes to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance? If you would, please come forward. Then is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone with us this evening who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come forward. And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition? Are there any council members who wish to speak? If not, then we will close the public hearing on this matter. Pursuant to state law, we won't be voting on this matter this evening, but rather we'll be voting on it at our next council meeting on July 17th. Thank you.
Proposed ordinance number 2023-27, an ordinance annexing contiguous territory to the city of Mishawaka, Indiana, and providing zoning classification therefore. This is to annex and zone to C4 automobile-oriented commercial, 100-foot north of northeast corner of East McKinley and Maplehurst. Public hearing with no vote.
Thank you. We will now open the public hearing on proposed ordinance 2023-27. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, please come forward to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Mr. President, members of the council, my name is Bernie Feeney. I'm a registered land surveyor with Whiteman Associates. We are located at 1405 North Michigan Street in Plymouth, Indiana. I am here this evening on behalf of 1500 McKinley LLC, which is effectively Stoyanov, the owner of Cars to You, located immediately next door to the petition property. This petition property is the old Swifty gas station, located at the corner of Maplehurst and McKinley. And we are, on advice of the Plan Commission staff, seeking to rezone this to C4 along with the annexation, since all of the property surrounding it and all of the property across on the south side of McKinley is also zoned C4. It is on the north, you have the Mishawaka Auto Auction, and on the east, you have the Cars to You used car lot. This piece of property is identical in size to the Cars to You piece of property, but located, again, immediately west. The proposal is to build 5 storage units on the property. This property is nowhere near the scope of the previous item that you just reviewed, but is only 5 buildings. We have been in touch with the utilities, and the only comment that we received was that another hydrant would need to be placed there along McKinley at the owner's expense. We have discussed this with the engineering department and the Plan Commission staff. As I said earlier, comments from both have been observed in the layout of the site plan. Variances have been secured for this property in previous meetings. We currently, earlier today, filed a plat as requested by the engineering department to allow the city of Mishawaka to secure additional right-of-way along McKinley there for upcoming projects. At this point, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Feeney? Mrs. Volker?
Thank you. Hi, Mr. Feeney. I do have a question about the Swifty gas station and wondering about any tanks that might be in the ground and if those would be removed.
Yes, ma'am. That's been a question at all the hearings that I've attended so far. The tanks were removed under supervision of IDEM. And I corresponded with IDEM via email, and the person who was in charge of this site. I had explained to that individual that we were planning on storage buildings at this location, and explained to him a bit of the operation of the storage buildings. His response was, and I've already filed a copy of that response with the Plan Commission staff, that provided that there was no continuous occupancy of any buildings out there, that this particular proposition would be acceptable to IDEM. To answer your direct question, the tanks have been removed.
Thank
The monitoring wells are currently in place. We have located those monitoring wells. I do not know, since IDEM has basically said, go ahead and do what you want to do with these restrictions, what we must do, and I will contact IDEM about what we have to do with regard to the monitoring wells, whether or not they have to be preserved or whether or not they can be removed.
So a follow-up question to that would be retention ponds, the water that
Yes,
on the
ma'am,
site.
drainage.
Is there a retention pond that you'll have to put into place?
We will not be putting a new retention pond in place, but we have spoken with engineering about the use of the retention pond on the north side of Cars to You. We can pipe all of the drainage on that site. There is room to add additional drainage storage or retention storage on the Cars to You retention basin. Since it's a common owner, there'll be an easement required, yes, but that'll be the size of it.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Bednicki?
Thank you. Mr. Feeney, I see that there's going to be an entrance right off of McKinley. Wouldn't it be more logical to use the Maplehurst Street and kind of come in from the side? That it just limits how many access points we have on McKinley, especially since we're going to be widening that section within the next 10, 15 years.
Exactly, Mr. Bednicki, and I understand your concern. In talking with engineering, we were told that we would need to close up the Maplehurst and McKinley entrances located right there at the corner of Maplehurst and McKinley, and we were asked to provide a central access point on the frontage there. It's about 310 feet of frontage, 300 feet of frontage, something like that. And that's about where the current central curb cut was, that was, you know, the kind of slanty entrance off of McKinley. So that one will remain. It'll probably be replaced by new concrete, but that one will be the one that is used for the storage units. In putting this plan together, one of the overriding concerns for Mr. Stoyanov was security. The cars, the used cars that he stores and has on display on his lot have undergone considerable theft of the converters. And Mr. Stoyanov told me that a few times the number of converters that were stolen would amount to about $20,000 worth of replacement costs for him on a given weekend. Now, this was a weekend. So what he's at this point trying to do is to provide as much stopping power as he can along Maplehurst, which is where some of the entrance was gained for the used cars and access to the used cars. That's not the only access point, but these buildings will provide some security for the used car lot. But that's why the building has been oriented north-south and along and as close to Maplehurst property line as we can make it. Fences will be tied in to the fence to the north along the south line of Mishawaka Auto Auction, and there will be fences that limit access along the east line. There will be a joint access between the storage buildings and the Cars to You site as required by Mishawaka Engineering.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Compton?
Mr. Feeney, thank you for your presentation. Looking at the preliminary site plan, I just see the buildings. It's pretty basic, but.
Very basic, sir.
Is there going to be an office there, or will it be operated out of the used car? Are they going to operate kind of, together out of that one existing building? And this will be
I
just
understand, Mr.
storage?
Thomas. The buildings that you see are the buildings that will be constructed. Five buildings
Right.
will be constructed there. There will be no office on site.
Okay.
All business will be transacted through the website. Generally, the Cars to You website or a brand-new website set up. The access will be similar to what Mr. Fitzpatrick listed. You won't be dealing with an individual. There will be no one on site. You will be given your codes through the website.
Okay.
And that's part of what we discussed with IDEM, that, this is a unique situation in that these storage buildings are not occupied even 8 hours a day. These buildings are, once in a month.
Right. In and out occasionally.
Exactly. Random times, random frequency.
Right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Other questions for Mr. Feeney? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else physically present this evening who wishes to speak in favor? Please come forward. Then is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak? Is there anyone wishing with us this evening who wishes to speak in opposition? And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition? Are there any council members who wish to speak? Then at this time, we'll close the public hearing on this proposed ordinance, and pursuant to state law, this also will be voted on at our meeting of July 17th. Thank you.
Proposed ordinance number 2023-29, an ordinance amending Chapter 137 of the Municipal Code of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana, as from time to time amended, commonly known as the zoning ordinance of 1966 of the City of Mishawaka, Indiana. This is to rezone from C1 to R3 multifamily residential 2406 Schumacher Drive and adjacent property. The petitioner is requesting that this be tabled until the August 21st meeting.
Mr. Compton.
I make a motion that we honor the petitioner's request.
Second.
Thank you. A motion has been made and seconded to postpone further public hearing on proposed ordinance 2023-29 until our regularly scheduled meeting of August 21st of this year at the request of the petitioner. Any additional questions or comments from the council? Then hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The matter will be postponed until August 21st.
Proposed ordinance number 2023-30, an ordinance to establish 124 South Ray Street as a local historic landmark within the city of Mishawaka, Indiana.
Thank you. May we have the committee report, please?
Yes, Mr. President. To the members of the Common Council of City of Mishawaka, your Committee on Land Use Planning, to whom was referred the matter of proposed ordinance number 2023-30, report that they have examined said matter, and that their opinion, it should be presented to the council as a whole. This is signed by the entire committee, and I move for its acceptance.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to approve the committee report. Any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We'll now move into second reading of public hearing on proposed ordinance 2023-30. Anyone wishing to speak in favor, please come forward to the podium and begin by stating your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Robert Sullivan, and I live at 124 South Ray Street in Mishawaka. And we have presented a proposal to have our house registered historical. My wife and I bought this in 2012, in May of 2012, and I was still working in Ohio, and we drove back and forth every weekend and holiday for 3.5 years to restore the house, inside and out. It was in very poor condition. It had been businesses, lawyers' offices, doctors' offices, apartments, and probably hadn't had residential in it for 60 or 70 years. So every room in the house we've completely redone, new hardwood floors, windows, roof, furnace, heating, plumbing, electricity. So we took a 1892 home shell and built a new house inside of it. And it's, you know, we put an iron fence around it, landscaping, there wasn't any landscaping there, but we put all our heart and soul in it, and one of our dreams was to eventually to be able to get it registered. So would appreciate your votes.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Sullivan? Mrs. Volker.
Thank you. Hi, Mr. Sullivan. It's good to see you here. I want to thank you, and Faye, of course, for all the work and effort and love that you've put into that house over these years, and you've taken something that was undesirable and created a gem and brought something back that was probably beautiful when it was initially built.
Right.
and had become an eyesore. And I just want to thank you for it. And I also want to thank you for wanting to landmark it. The houses like your home are part of the historical thread of the city of Mishawaka, and it's important that we preserve what we can.
Right.
And I just want to thank you very much for doing
thank
what you have done and for agreeing to landmark it. and
We also
putting in the
ran a
effort.
tea parlor out of it for about 6 years before my wife passed away. And I'm sure some of your wives have been there. We did more than 5,000 people came through without any advertising. So it was very Victorian, and the women, we made a lot of people happy doing it. So it's been a real pleasure living there and being there, and nice to be downtown. Any questions?
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Sullivan?
I have a comment.
Mrs. DeMaid?
Thank you. Mr. Sullivan, hi. I am sure Faye is looking down, and she is so pleased, and I am so happy for you and for this. I know you guys put in so much hard work in that house.
We did.
And I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled. So, thank you.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Well done.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else present with us this evening who wishes to speak in favor? If you would, please come forward. Then is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone here this evening who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come forward. And is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak in opposition? Are there any council members who wish to speak? Hearing none, then I call for the question.
Question.
Madam Clerk, would you please poll the council?
Mr. Hazen,
Yes.
Mr. Belovich,
Yes.
Mr. Mamalenti,
Yes.
Mr. Benicki,
Yes.
Mr. Emmons,
Yes.
Mrs. DeMaid,
Yes.
Mr. Compton,
Yes.
Mrs. Volker,
Yes.
Mr. Hicksonbaugh.
Yes.
Proposed ordinance passes 9-0.
Thank you again, sir. At this time, we'll move into privilege of the floor, and members of the public are invited to the podium to speak with respect to non-agenda items only under privilege of the floor. Please, sir. If you would, sir, please begin by stating your name and address for the record.
My name is Jack Walker. I live at 1313 Iowa Street, Mishawaka 46544. I wish to speak to the council about our current fireworks ordinance. Firstly, I want to qualify that I'm not here as a ex-employee. I'm just strictly here as a citizen of the city of Mishawaka, where I grew up and lived here through high school and was moved away for 25 years, moved back in 2000, so this is my hometown, which I dearly love. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that I'm a dog volunteer with a rescue organization, which I won't mention the name of it. I'm sure you would know about it because we're one of the top ones in the area because I'm good with dogs, and so I'm strictly involved with the dog parts of rescue, rehabilitation, and adoption. So I'm going to speak about the effects of fireworks on dogs. And I want to start by saying that, like again I said, I am not speaking as a representative of the rescue organization I volunteer for. I'm just bringing that up because I know a lot about dogs, and I have my finger on the pulse of what goes on with the rehabilitation of dogs, the loss of dogs. Most of the dogs that come into our system have either been abused or abandoned or both. And I know all kinds of heartbreaking stories. But it used to be, as you're well aware, that people could set off fireworks literally any time of the year. And I lived on 12th and Merfield, where there was a lot of traffic, but I had a dog trained that she would stay in my front yard no matter what. She wouldn't run out in the street, and every evening in the summer, I would have my dog out there in my front yard, and we'd be gardening. I'd be gardening, and she'd just be hanging out with me, and invariably some fireworks would go off, and I'd have to put her back in the house. And this went literally almost every night all summer long. So at the time, at a certain time, it was decided to pass a new ordinance to limit the amount of days and hours that people could set off fireworks, because it was just like a constant thing year-round. And so the fireworks ordinance, as I now understand it, is 5 days before 4th of July, 5 days after, and I'm not sure about New Year's Eve, if it's the same 5-day period either way, but obviously there aren't as many fireworks going off in the middle of winter, so generally the fireworks only go off at the turn of midnight, New Year's, and it tends not to be that problem. That seemed to be a good solution. It allowed people to get their jollies setting off fireworks, but still limited it to where it wasn't just a whole year-round thing, and everybody seemed to be happy. Well, as the saying goes, that was then, and this is now. And one of the things that I see regularly on the news is items about animal cruelty. As you may be aware, there was a man who was arrested who had over 100 animals in the facility, and he was arrested for animal abuse. And eventually, time went on. He got out of jail, whatever. Now he's been found to have another house with 100 animals, and he was arrested for animal cruelty. And so animal cruelty has been in the news a lot, and it's on a lot of people's minds. Now, as part of the rescue agency, I kind of have my finger on the pulse of what goes on with dogs around town, and so there's a situation now being in post-COVID where a lot of people adopted dogs. I'll speak strictly about dogs since that's my expertise, because they were stuck in their house and they wanted to have a dog. Well, now that the COVID restrictions are over and they've gone back to work, a lot of them have returned these dogs, and now every facility where a dog is taken, which is found and not chipped or whatever, is taken to SBARC or Humane Society or one of these places, who are all completely full. And so my agency will get a phone call and say, if somebody doesn't come and get this dog by tomorrow, it's got to be put down. So the word will go out. We have our own little private Facebook group. And now that I'm retired, I'm able to do transports. So I've been able to transport 13 dogs to keep them from being put down. We put them in our system. We have a lot of fosters around the area. And whether you're fostering or adopting a rescue dog, you don't necessarily know what you're getting. So when fireworks start happening, which can be quite loud and disconcerting to dogs, you really don't know what you're up against. And so typically the way that's handled is by having some prescription strength tranquilizers on hand. Now, these tranquilizers have to be given 1 to 2 hours before the loud noises start, which tends to be the percussive fireworks. And so there are a lot of people that have adopted a new dog or are fostering a dog, and they have no idea how that dog is going to react to fireworks. The statistics are over 50% of dogs have a very negative reaction to fireworks, and it's really a big problem. And so what happens is, if a dog is outside, let's say in a fenced-in area, and these flashes of light and loud exploding percussive fireworks go off, the animal absolutely freaks out, and if it can, it will get out. If it has to dig under, bust through, or whatever, and take off. And the statistics are that only 14% of dogs who run off are returned to their owners. They're either run over by cars or lost and put into a system, which I said is now overloaded, and there aren't any facilities that can take a single lost dog at this point, which means a lot of dogs being put down. So what I believe that, let me now briefly tell you my experience this past 10 days around the 4th of July. I have a little dog. He's a very, he's a emotional support dog by his very nature. He's not registered as such, but he's a very sensitive little dog, and I might mention that he has a fan club down at the Mishawaka Farmers Market who are always happy to see him when I take him down there on Sundays after church. And so he's a very sensitive little dog, and he's very good at making people feel better. And I'm one of these people who has a good ability to communicate with dogs, and I'm able to calm dogs down. So I'm used at my rescue agency, a lot of times at adoption events, I'm the go-to person to calm a dog down. I'm very good at it. I can communicate with dogs. I can't tell you how, but I'm not Dr. Doodle, but I do have abilities to, which I can't explain. So what happened to me personally, because I could talk all night about this case or that case or this statistic or that statistic, is that I had some tranquilizers on hand to give my dog. Now, these have to be given a half hour to 1 to 2 hours before all this percussive noise starts up. Well, that's very hard to determine. So it might seem reasonable, well, we've got a 10-day period where people can set off fireworks. And so people who have dogs, which about slightly over 50% of dogs have extreme reactions to these fireworks. So I wasn't sure exactly when to give my dog a tranquilizer and when not, because about 2 weeks before even the 5-day period, I live by Hillis Hands Park, and people that I call hit and run fireworks, typically juveniles who live in an apartment and aren't going to shoot off fireworks from their property, will go around and shoot off fireworks for maybe 2-3 minutes or 4 minutes, and then split to another location, because that way if somebody calls the police, they're already gone. And this went on for a couple of weeks, and I know that's a hard thing to try and get your handle on. What I see as a problem is that when the city passes an ordinance that basically countermands the noise control ordinance that we have, it creates in the citizens free rein. It's like, okay, well, now I can make all the noise I want until midnight, and if it bothers people, that's just too bad. And so what happened in this particular 10-day period is that, in my case, there were 4 nights. There was Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday from 9 o'clock till midnight. I didn't have the freedom to celebrate the 4th of July because I had to stay there in my house and hold on to my dog the whole time because he was shaking like this. And this went on for 4 nights. The three nights before the 4th and the 4th, I spent from 9 o'clock until midnight holding on to my dog, and it upset my dog and it upset me greatly. And I had only given him 1 tranquilizer at 8 o'clock on the 4th of July, and that did help because on the 4th of July from down to midnight, if any of you were, aware, there were loud percussive fireworks going on all over the city to the point where it was compared to a war zone. And this was out in Facebook. A person some of you may know that I went to high school with, lives in Jacksonville, Florida, had posted to Facebook that he had this new puppy and it was his first 4th of July and he was having a difficult time dealing with the loud fireworks. And then there were blog comments by people. One of them said, I think he lives probably in an incorporated area of Michiana, said that his neighbors had 2 full pallets of fireworks and had been setting them off nonstop for 7 straight days and caused his cats to go into hiding. And I'm not a cat person, but, he said it was very traumatic to him. And that he also made the comment that it sounded like a war zone. And which the first person that posted in Jacksonville said, well, it sounds like NAM down here. And after that, several other people stated that there were so many percussive fireworks going off in Mishawaka that it literally sounded like a war was going on. Now, the first thought that came to my mind was veterans that are suffering from PTSD would probably not appreciate having to deal with something like that. But in the post-COVID era, there's a lot of people with mental health problems that have a hard time dealing with this extended amount of noise. And so this has been my experience, and I think at the time the current fireworks laws seemed to be a good idea. But as the saying goes, that was then and this is now. And what we're seeing now is there's just so many percussive fireworks all going off at the same time for extended periods, day after day, for every day of these 10 days, it really starts to wear on, in my case, a dog owner. And so I would like to ask you as council persons, those of you that have a district, to maybe discuss what people's attitude is toward this issue. Because to me, I tried to think of a word that I could use to describe this effect, and I thought of things like trauma or my dog being terrified, and I finally came up with, this is inhumane treatment of dogs. This is cruelty to animals, which is essentially sanctioned by the city of Mishawaka. And so therefore, I think that it's time now to revisit the fireworks laws that we have on the books right now and look at further restrictions, either to only the 4th of July. Personally, I would like to have no fireworks ever go off because I've been a dog owner most of my life and I can't really enjoy them. I understand people want to celebrate, but the city passes laws so that person A or group A cannot just do any old thing they want willy-nilly at the expense of group or person B. And so you have a mass amount of people day after day after day after day who probably, many are young people who don't even recognize the significance of July 4th and what it represents in the independence of our country. They're just having fun shooting off loud fireworks. So I would like to ask the city council to consider further restrictions on fireworks, especially on the number of days, and especially with these percussive fireworks. Because there are now fireworks that are very colorful, that kind of go boom, and they're very pretty, and you know, if my dog's locked up in my house, he doesn't notice that. But when these loud percussives go off, especially a lot of them, if there's just kind of one here, he's startled, and then he kind of gets over it. It was a very difficult 4th of July period for me, and I think further restrictions need to be made, like I said, on the number of times that people can let these fireworks off, or a limit on the percussive ones, especially because they make such a loud sound that it's basically animal cruelty to animals in people's homes. We have a lot of single-family homes in Mishawaka with pets, probably more than ever before. So that's my petition, and I would like you to reconsider at this time changing the fireworks ordinance to be more restrictive to help with dogs. And like I said, it also affects other pets. I'm not a cat person, so I don't know much about cats. I'm only speaking about dogs. Do you have any questions?
Oh, not so much a question, but a couple comments. Thank you for what you've shared with us, although undoubtedly yours is not a unique experience. I believe others have shared it. We do have a cat in our house, and what you described was fairly similar to his experience as well. It's been a while since I've looked at it, but my recollection is that there is an underlying statute that deals with the authority of municipalities to act in the area of fireworks and any ordinances that we would pass. But I do believe that your comment is timely in so much you referenced our noise ordinance previously. It's my understanding that our corporation counsel, Mr. Hinkle, is working with the police department to look at our noise ordinance, and it may be time for us to revisit the fireworks ordinance as well. So between corporation counsel and our council attorney, and I'm sure I and others will review the state statute, we'll take a look at it. The big question in my mind will be, with what we're going to do, how could we enforce it? Because you're right, it's a very pervasive problem, not just in Mishawaka, but across the nation. So what are we going to do that is enforceable to try to make a positive impact on people's life, if anything? But we'll look into it and see if there's anything that makes sense for the good of the community to try to address. But thank you for bringing this to our attention.
Yeah,
Good
well,
to
I'd
see
like
you.
to comment on that just because something.
And I'm going to ask you to be brief, sir, if you could, because there are some others who may want to speak, but.
I just want to state that just because something is hard to enforce, it doesn't mean you still shouldn't pass it.
Oh, agreed. I agree wholeheartedly.
Thank you.
But thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak under privilege of the floor? Please come forward. Then is there anyone participating remotely who wishes to speak under privilege of the floor? Thank you. With that, there's no unfinished business of which I'm aware, so we'll move into new business. Is there any new business to come before the council? Mr. Emmons?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a reminder that the West End Neighborhood Meeting is coming on the 20th of this month. Our featured speaker will be Mayor Abe Wood. He'll be giving a shortened version of the state of the city on that evening. So everyone is welcome, whether you're in the West End or not. And as usual, West End bakery goods will be provided. And the bakery will be open. It's been closed for 2 weeks, but they'll open up to serve our donuts. So look forward to having everybody there, and that on Thursday at 7 o'clock at St. Babel's. So, thank you.
Thank you. Other new business to come before the council? Then, as another announcement, this coming Thursday at 6 PM, we'll be conducting an informational session here in the council chambers in order to hear more about the proposal for the mill Phase 2, just fairly proximate here to City Hall, and the proposal with regard to expand and develop another phase of the mill. That'll be Thursday, July 13th, here in the council chambers at 6 PM, and we will be live streaming that meeting as well. Any other new business to come before the council? Then hearing none, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
So moved.
We're adjourned. Thank you, folks.